packed morning. Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Kent County Executive Committee for Thursday, May 28th. Wayman, will you please read the guidance?
Sure, yes.
Can I remind everyone to mute their lines, please? Thank you.
Pursuant to Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-75, the Executive Committee of the Kent County Board of Commissioners, in order to protect the public health, will conduct this meeting via electronic communications. And any member of the public wishing to listen to the proceedings or provide public comment may do so by using the following internet connection or phone numbers and passcodes, which are also listed on the agenda. Any disruptions during the meeting by using offensive language or offensive actions will be muted. The individual will be muted and removed from the meeting. You can send public comment to public comment at kentcountymi.gov as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayman. All right. So speaking of public comment, we could give everybody a couple of minutes, but I don't know if we have any public comment today. You can also raise your hand in chat.
I don't see any emails in the inbox at the moment.
Right. We'll give it another minute, since it's at the very beginning and we just did it. We have Jim on yet?
No.
No hands raised?
No hands raised? No emails? All right. We're going to go on to approval of the minutes from our last executive committee meeting on April 23rd. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved by Breedy.
Support by Stack.
Moved by Breedy, support by Stack. Questions or comments on the minutes? Any hands raised?
No hands raised.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, minutes are approved. We're on to item 3, new business. Wayman, take it
Yes,
away.
Madam Chair, the COVID Relief Subcommittee met again this past Tuesday, as we all know, and are meeting again today at 10:30, 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. Hopefully we'll get out of the board meeting on time for that meeting. We're rounding the corner of the subcommittee's work. Madam Chair, you sent an email to commissioners at the beginning of this exercise back late March, April, I think, and it stated that no later than June 1, 2020, you would like to see guidelines for dispersing the funds to local units of government, municipalities to recover their COVID-19 emergency-related cost. You wanted those guidelines completed, and then no later than July 20th, 2020, you wanted recommended guidelines for fund disbursement beyond local municipal cost, guidance of continued. Yes.
Was it July 20th or June 20th?
I'm sorry, July 20th. July 20th.
July? Okay.
Yeah, I meant July.
Okay.
July 20th.
Okay.
You wanted those guidelines in place for community and usage for remaining funds under the federal guidelines. So I'm reading verbatim from this letter here. Then no later than December the 14th, you wanted the recommendations and any and all remaining disbursements of funds that may be held back to ensure all possible allowable uses and needs have been met. So we're rounding the corner with our exercise of vetting out the local units of government. We received additional information from the city of Grand Rapids last night, yesterday, more detailed information about their needs. And we've reached out to a couple of the local units. Yesterday I spoke with Algoma Township and provided them with the feedback that we received from them and shared with them the other information that had been provided by the other jurisdictions. They did not submit any information that expressed need. So I don't know, there may be something coming from Algoma Township as late as this week.
Okay. So the submission from them was all like revenue losses or?
It did not have anything there. It was surprising. And I shared that with the township supervisor and I told him I would send that information to him. I don't know if it was just an error on their report or what happened.
Okay.
But hopefully the township supervisor will share that with us once he looks at it today.
Okay.
And so the board's subcommittee meets again this morning. We will hear testimony, reports from the Chamber of Grand Rapids. We'll hear from the Latinx community leaders this morning. And then we'll continue the conversation around the preliminary allocations recommendations coming out of administration. We are hopeful that we can get through this process soon so that we can begin the distributions. So I just wanted to put that on the table and make sure that we're on the same page about where we're going with this and answer any questions that there might be from the executive committee today.
So I do want to talk to executive committee because we need to start moving and approving this stuff, but I don't know if we should approve it in parcels or if we should do it as one subcommittee guideline, which I would prefer to do. But I do want to try to maintain our deadline, and I think we've got what we need with the exception of a couple stragglers like Wayman mentioned for the local units. So maybe we approve that today, but it'll be part of the greater subcommittee report. Thoughts?
Yeah, Chair Bolter, this is Stack. I do support the approach that you're looking at taking here, which is to sort of allocate the larger pot into these buckets. And it seems to me, though, that the identification of how much of the total money we put in each of the buckets would have to be done all together. I mean, if we're going to be shifting money back and forth, it's hard to do if you do part of it and then move on. So I think if we can focus first on trying to come to consensus on what's the number that we allocate to each of these buckets, then we can start working on whether we can find the parameters and the standards by which we then ask somebody else to do the actual allocation.
Right. But for the city deadline, the municipality's deadline, we have their submissions with the exception of a couple.
Yeah.
That need to probably be revisited. So just want to.
Is it our intention? Is it the thought that whatever the municipalities request, those would be granted unless they're adjusted, but would be granted in total? Or I mean, obviously we have to decide that yet, but.
Yeah, and I don't know if Steve is on. Would Steve? I mean, are we kind of budgeting what they submitted and then having them submit bills, or are we just planning to grant that money to them in ahead of time? And do we know what process?
Let's let him catch up for a minute. He's reading your comments.
I'm on the line. At this point, all I have actually done is allocate a preliminary number that represents about 15% of the grant we got. That seems to be at least in the ballpark of what some of the other counties have done.
Yeah.
But in terms of allocating money to individual local units, we haven't done any recommendations or even preliminary numbers for the board at this point.
Right, but to kind of keep in line with our timeline, so let's say one of the townships submitted an $18,000 estimate. Are we planning to write them an $18,000 check now to get their bills paid, or are we asking them to submit their bills and then we reimburse them?
Just a second, let closed caption catch up, please. We haven't because we haven't allocated money out and decided how we're going, I haven't really thought about how we would set up that process, whether we write the check. That's something, a decision we could make quickly. It's not something that takes a long time. It's just a matter of deciding which is the most cost-effective way to do that once we make the decision.
Yeah,
I'd like to huddle with the staff and with the chair, maybe the vice chair about that a bit, maybe, and just get on the same page. Maybe that's a discussion we can also have today at the subcommittee meeting, just to get some thoughts about that. But what I would rather we do is make sure that we don't, micromanage too much. I think we have to trust the local units of government.
I agree, and we can't be.
Us.
That's a lot of accounting for our department.
Right. We got to move.
Yeah, I think that the foundational question I was trying to pose is, are we approaching the public entities' requests as that whatever their requests, documented as they might be, would expect to be granted 100%? The private sector, of course, are not getting anywhere near 100% reimbursement.
I recommend we take a look at the formula that Steve talked about. I mean, some of them are not close to the 15% of their total population. I think the city of Grand Rapids is like 1/3 the population of the city. But if you look at what happened in Macomb County and Oakland County and how they disperse those dollars, Warren County, for instance, is 134,000. It's the largest. It's the third largest city in the state, Warren City, rather, in Macomb County. And I think the total number of dollars that were granted to all of the municipalities in Macomb County was $10 million.
Wow.
We have on the table to disperse, at least at this point, $17 million for the county of Kent, and we're smaller than Macomb. So I think we have, at this point, allotted a adequate number compared to what the other counties are doing. The question is going to be the city of Grand Rapids. I know the city of Wyoming, their number is 1.8 million, I think it is. The city of Grand Rapids is 35 million. So we're going to have to tease that out. There's some overlap that's going on between us and the city of Grand Rapids, some of the things that they're wanting to do with certain entities and so forth. So we need to tease that out. I think that's a better way to do it versus a percentage number.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to micromanage it either.
Yeah.
Diane, Commissioner Jones had a question.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. In the spirit of lively discussion, I wouldn't mind going back to your original question. So we have 114 million, approximately 40 million is needs that the county will have. We have 74 million left, less the 2 million for PPE. That's $72 million. I believe we are really close to consensus on the concept of like a small business grant. And honestly, holding that up when it's going to be such a significant lift to process and figure out is a piece I would really like to have done sooner versus later. And I think that part really needs some further discussion, because that's something that is really going to be labor intensive. And I believe we have some consensus that money is going to go in that direction. And I would like to have that done sooner versus later. So I just want to throw that in the mix, which is contrary to the let's do it all at the same time. So I wanted to voice that opinion.
And I think, Wayman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of the submission from the city is like business relief that we're planning to do. So that would be really complicated if both the city and our efforts are and that's just very confusing. So
I'd like to sit down with the city of Grand Rapids and go through that with them. If we could get a hold of Mark Washington and the city today, even just to sit down with them, maybe tomorrow. All of that out.
Stan, Commissioner Steck.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I was thinking that Commissioner Jones' observation comments are right on. but could we not proceed to implement or at least structure that process, even if we haven't determined exactly what's in that bucket?
Yeah, I think I would like to get that done today. I'm really hoping in subcommittee we get the presentation, the parameters. Legal is going to be on the call. You know, we can at least start to formulate that structure and at least agree on the vendor to do it. And at least they can kind of start going down the path of getting this set up. I'd like to do that today if possible. And I think we're pretty close. I think they're really going to enlighten the board on all the different mechanics of this and the logistics. And I mean, they worked with 2 universities on setting up different ways to track things, and it's pretty extensive. So that's my hope, is we can get that kind of focus today. And as far as Steve's, you know, the outline, I think we're pretty close on that too. I mean, I would love to move that out today. These aren't set in stone numbers. These are going to be fluid because they're all estimates through the end of the year. So this is just kind of a framework and guideline for the board to support so that we can start moving. And I feel like we're pretty close. So anyway, that's my hope. Any other comments on it or questions? I don't see any. All right, let's move on to new business B.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have begun the search for a deputy county administrator based on the feedback that I've received from the board in terms of making sure that we have adequate support for this office and for the board. We kicked this off back in May 11th. We hired a recruiting firm called HR Collaborative. Pam, if you want to go to the 2 documents that I placed with you, if you could put those up, please. The position profile is noted there. I sent that out, I believe, in one of my updates a week or so ago. But the position profile is located on the screen there. It goes through what the requirements are. We took quite a bit of time netting out what this person would do. I'm very pleased with how this is set up. This person would represent me. They would make sure that if I'm absent, they could stand in. They would not miss a beat. They would be able to replace me at moment's notice. That's what we're looking for. This person who understands the politics, the nuance, in addition to the technical aspects of running a county. We're looking for someone that is talented, smart, and able to keep up with our county board of commissioners, because we have a dynamic group that we are at, as well as the staff. I mean, we have one of the largest counties. We have one of the best run counties. We need to make sure that we have the best people, the top candidates applying. So that's the position profile. There's a timeline that we have created to go through this. I've listed that as well, showed that as well. We can blow that up just a little bit. There you go. And you'll see the timeline. We stretch all the way out to July 20th is when we'd like to end the process and select the person. So you'll see that the position isn't posted as of the 18th. That will run all the way through the 8th of June, where we would be sourcing the candidates, and then begin the process as of Monday, doing phone interviews with potential candidates, just double checking that they've got the right basic information, or basic skill sets rather. And then there's going to be a review of the top candidates in the middle of June. And then the first round interviews will begin latter part of this month, or June rather, beginning in June 22nd. Madam Chair, I'd like for you to be a part of either the first or second round interviews.
Okay.
If we could have you, I'd like the sheriff
Sure.
also to be joined with us. And I'm going to identify a township supervisor, perhaps similar to what we did when I was hired into this position,
Okay,
similar to that process, if we could have that. And then we'll go through these assessments, the reference checks, all of that, and then we'll be hopefully in the position to have this person on board by the end of July. So that's the timeline. It's a tight time frame, and I really hope that we can find the right candidate.
yeah, me too. All right, any questions or comments on that? No? That's awesome. Oh, no hands. Yeah, I really hope we can too. And would this be in addition to Matthew's role or?
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
yes, yeah. I heard that loud and clear from this board. And what we've done is we figured out a way to manage the number of FTE within the office without having to add additional staff.
Yeah.
So we talked that through my team, and we're maintaining our budget, our FTEs as we were approved.
are you planning to mention this in full board today or no?
I can, yes, I would like to. I think Jim Talon, I think had a question or two. I don't know if he's on the call yet or not, but
Okay, that'd be good.
I can share some of that as well.
Okay, Commissioner Steck?
And thank you, Chair. Just a quick question to follow up on. Can you give us some sense about when you anticipate Matthew would be coming back?
Okay, so I saw Matthew this past weekend, all COVID protected, of course, went to his home and visited him in Holland. And he's doing okay, but he won't be back until the middle of July, around the 24th. I think that's his date of return. Matthew has had remarkable success managing his Crohn's over the years. He's been with the county 15, 16 years. He had one big episode about 6 years ago, I believe, where he was out for a few months, had a big scare. This latest one that happened was a significant scare too, because he was down for 2 days and couldn't remember things. Without getting into a lot of the details, I think everybody realizes that Crohn is one of these debilitating illnesses that can, over time, begin to deteriorate one's potential for conducting normal work. And I think that's where we're at with Matthew. I think that he's assessing, his doctors are assessing his ability to be able to perform on a 40-hour work week or 50-hour work week with the responsibilities that he has to adhere to or to shoulder. And my guess is that there's some question about whether he'll be able to return back in full position, or potentially they could say that, you know, he's on long-term disability. That's where we're at with Matthew.
Thank you.
I do not want to, you know, push him to do anything otherwise. We got to make sure that his health is first, important, his family too.
Yeah.
So that's where we are, Commissioner.
Yeah, and he's definitely missed, and you know, if there's a ways, any creative ways we can keep him roped in somehow would be really good. But yeah.
Yeah. Does
Okay,
that answer your question?
Any other questions or comments on that? Are we getting any good? Are we getting some actual resumes, or are they?
I have not looked. I'm going to do that.
I just wondered if they hold it till the end and then present.
Yeah, well, I'm just praying and hoping, you know. Praying and hoping.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, I didn't want to jinx it too soon.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
I want to be surprised.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Let's move on to state budget.
Okay, Lori, are you on the call? Lori Latham? She and I met with Senator McGregor and Representative Heisinga yesterday. We're meeting with Representative LeGrand, I think tomorrow or this afternoon. We met with Senator Brinks and Representative Hood.
Rachel Hood, Representative Hood.
Yes, Hood. A little foggy. I didn't have any coffee this morning. Anyway, we met with them about the state budget. We met with them about specifics around revenue sharing, about funding for West Michigan Partnership for Children. Those discussions are going to continue. We're making sure that they understand that the county is not full up with a $114.6 million. That does not necessarily give us the safe, secure feeling that we can get through the next year and a half without revenue sharing. So Lori, you want to give a little bit more detail on this, and we'll answer any questions that the board has related to the state budget.
Yeah, so for those of you that serve on LHR, you heard earlier this week kind of what the budget deficit is that the state is experiencing. For the current fiscal year, the state budget office is projecting that there's going to be a $2 billion shortfall in the general fund revenues and a $1.2 billion decline in the school aid fund revenue. For this fiscal year, the way the process needs to go is that once the state budget director does this projection of what the decline in the state revenue is that office needs to send a letter to the governor's office telling them that the budget is in a decline and in default. Once that letter is sent to the governor does have a time frame as to when she or he needs to submit what is called an executive negative supplemental that would cut the budget and get it in line and balance it. The full legislature does not need to approve that negative executive order. It is only the appropriations committees. In our conversations, both with Senator Brinks and Representative Hood, as well as Representative Huizinga and Senator McGregor, there has been no communication from the governor's office as to when the time frame is that she is going to submit a negative supplemental through an executive order. What everybody is assuming, but this is an assumption because her office has not communicated anything, is that they are waiting for the federal government to pass another stimulus bill that may help state and local units of government fill those holes as relates to revenue losses to COVID. So everybody is in a holding pattern right now. There is no time frame as to when that negative supplemental will be coming out from the governor's office. What can further complicates the whole process is that going forward, there is a shortfall projected for fiscal year 2022. And the legislature, if you remember, in the last budget go around, gave themselves a self-imposed July 1st deadline to have the budget done. We did press our legislators about whether this time frame would still be met. The challenge that they've all said is that the committees are going to proceed. They are going to continue their negotiations, but it's very difficult to plan anything at this point without knowing what the governor's office is going to do with the current year budget, as well as the budget going forward. So in our conversations, I mean, Wayman articulated to the legislature to our legislators what the impact of a cut to revenue sharing would be, as well as to the public health dollars. And a lot of the legislators also raised questions as it related to our jail funding as well. We did press them in the conversations as to where they feel the pulse of the legislature is in cutting, because we do know that without new revenue, the only way they're going to get out of this is through significant cuts. I would say the one universal thing that we did hear is that they do want to protect the school aid fund, but they all understand that the importance of revenue sharing as well as those public health dollars, as we're kind of on the front lines fighting those COVID dollars. So I think there's some general understanding of the pressure, but everybody is a little frustrated right now because they just don't know where the governor's thought process is on the budget process. Another thing that is in negotiations in this whole state budget, and I know this committee has talked about it, is a delay in the summer property taxes. There is legislation that is moving today by Representative Lauer that we did talk to our legislators about. We did learn yesterday that Senator McGregor has introduced a companion legislation to kind of address some of the concerns that the local units of government have expressed with that bill as it is currently written. After talking with the Michigan Association of Counties yesterday, there is still significant opposition to those bills, and it is very unworkable for several parts of the state right now. So I believe that the Department of Treasury likely will be testifying this morning in support of those bills, but the Michigan Association of Counties, as well as the Municipal League, will be expressing some concern with that legislation that is moving. Jeff and his team are currently reviewing the package of legislation and the impact to Kent County at the request of Senator McGregor and Representative Huizinga, and Wayman will be talking with the legislators next week about kind of what the impact of those bills are on the county. And I can kind of stop there if anybody has any questions about the budget. We did get a brief update about the West Michigan Partnership for Children. I can provide an update on that, or we can hold that off for another discussion.
Can you just give a quick update, like what's the status?
Okay, so the West Michigan Partnership for Children, as you know, we've had a financial challenge with the department in paying the current or the case rate needed for this program. We did have a short-term agreement with the department through the last budget process, but that issue has come up again. In summary, the West Michigan Partnership is in arrears approximately $6 million with the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan at this point is unwilling to pay that $6 million because the state has significant concerns with West Michigan Partnership for Children as it relates to blind referrals, as it relates to their case rate programming, et cetera. In spite of independent actuaries validating the information that the West Michigan Partnership and the county has submitted, the department has been very reluctant to actually pay what is owed to West Michigan Partnership to continue the operations. The challenge that WMPC has at this point is that because they are $6 million in arrears, they cannot provide payment to the 5 foster care adoption agencies. The 5 foster care adoption agencies, as you can imagine, are struggling as they have not been paid, and their boards are putting significant pressure on WMPC and the state to resolve this, or they will need to terminate their contract with WMPC and direct contract with the state of Michigan. We have been in close contact with our legislators about this issue, as well as the state association and the federal monitors as it relates to this issue. Where it stands today is that Senator McGregor's staff is meeting with the state budget office as well as the MDHHS staff in trying to reach a resolution, at least to get WMPC through the current fiscal year. That would give us 6 months then to sit down and have some very thoughtful dialogue and conversation on how the pilot program would go forward in the next fiscal year. So we are hoping today that there will be some fruitful conversation that comes out of this dialogue with the 3 parties. In addition to that work, I do want to make note that Senator McGregor's office is in close contact with Senator Brinks's office, and Senator Brinks is, as we have been communicating with her as well, has been communicating back to the administration as well. So all of our delegation is trying very, very hard to get the funding for WMPC, but we do have a timeline that is being pressed upon us by the 5 foster care adoption agencies. So we will have a better update probably tomorrow as to the outcome of the conversation with the state budget office today. But right now, we're kind of back to the point where we were 6 months ago with the state.
Yeah, and everything I'm hearing about the state budget is pretty much there aren't any sacred cows. So I was told, I was on a conference call with the budget director, and he mentioned he could eliminate funding for 12 whole departments of the 15 or 16 that there are and still have a budget hole. So, yeah. Any questions or comments on the state budget for now? Seeing none, let's move on to old business. Any old business today, Wayman?
I think Diane Jones had her hand up. She wanted to hear about
Diane?
LRE. Mr. Jones?
Yep, I'm here. I was just asking if we could get an update on LRE while we're talking financial challenges.
I suspect that's directed to me.
That's probably better, yep.
Yeah, so of all of the ironies in this world, one of the consequences of the COVID crisis is that the demands for behavioral health services took a notable dive in the months of March and April. And while we are bracing ourselves for a greater rebound, that is, there's a lot of pent-up demand, the net effect of that and the ongoing rate adjustments that the state continues to address and work on, and some direct care wage enhancement. For the first time since I have been serving on that board, there was a black number at the bottom of the projected budget for the end of the year. So we are holding our breath, but currently there's a projected $2 million surplus from operations of the LRE, which includes all of the 5 CMHs through the end of this fiscal year. That is this year's operation. It does not address at all that huge deficit that was accumulated in the 2 prior years. And in regard to that, there's really been no progress. Pretty much the entire litigation process, negotiation process over that deficit has pretty much stayed frozen for the last, well, certainly since March. So we're not sure when that's going to re-engage. And the longer that goes, with everything else that's going on at the DHHS, it's just hard to predict what will re-engage once we start again. But otherwise, no, it's a painful way to balance your budget, but it has balance.
Great. Any other questions or comments on old business? Any other old business we need to address? Hands up. I don't see any.
Nope.
All right, miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous today? Don't see any.
Nope.
All right. And with that, we are adjourned until for 20 minutes until our board meeting. See everyone then.
All right.